Hi everyone, welcome to DM Talk. I'm Henry Knight, DM for Playerole. Tonight, I have a really big topic tonight. I know, every night is a good topic, right? Well, tonight we're going to talk about your first game. How is it, or was your first game? What did you do? I mean, did you have a big campaign? Did you have a one-shot? We'll go over that shortly. But before, I want to remind everybody tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central, our new time, we have the main event. The story continues of Harsh Reality. Harsh Reality is a group of individuals. It's a an evil side story about different races, different classes. They're a group of harsh individuals going up against just a main event, a story that's pretty harsh for them, pretty strong for them. And the reason why I call it harsh reality is because the reality is not everybody likes to play bad characters. It's good to say, yeah, I want to play an evil character, but you know what? Sometimes that goes down the drain because, you know, to do evil things, and especially in that type of setting, it can go awry. Well, we'll find out what happens tomorrow. Please join us, 7 p.m. Central. It's going to be a good time. But anyways, let's continue. The first game, my first game for, it was my first Dungeons & Dragons game. I did mention it early on in the episode 1 or 2, somewhere around there, when I introduced myself to everyone. The first game, mine was, you know, I wanted a fairy tale, and I did. I wrote this amazing, or at least I thought it was amazing, fairy tale. And let me tell you, the outcry, the hate for that game was just phenomenal. And I really say that because not all games are going to be perfect. Not all games are going to be what you want them to be. In your head, you have this idea of what you want in the game, how you want it to go. You know, do you want an epic fantasy, a magic game, whatever it is that's in your head as a DM or game master, you're going to be excited about it. And the thing is, when you write something in your head, you have this path, and this is where railroading comes in. A lot of the big R, a lot of people do that. A lot of DMs do that. You have to have a little bit of railroading. You know, there's railroading, there's sandbox, stuff like that. Those are big words for a control mechanism that the DM does to kind of grab your story and bring it on track or manipulate things. But sometimes you're going to have to do that. Sometimes. But sandbox is more or less kind of going with the flow. You know, I love sandbox because I get a lot of energy through my players. So the more interactive they get, the more interactive I am. That's the way I do things. But in my first session, my first game, I really had a hard time with it because I really, in my head, I wanted it to be a certain way. And I don't know if you remember the film Legend. The film Legend was a big impact on me. A couple episodes, DM Talk, I talked about inspiration. And inspiration is really big on me. And movies are, books are, music, etc. But the movie Legend, you know, Tom Cruise, and, you know, it's a fantasy. Tim Curry, good actors, by the way. But I'm not here to review the movie, but I'm here to tell you what would happen. I really used that unicorn thing, was awesome. I love horses, and I wanted a unicorn in my game. And I really wanted this big, you know, lost unicorn, this emotional connection. And the players didn't like it. They thought it was stupid. They thought that the emotional connection was stupid. I had the wrong mix of players. They wanted just grittiness, you know, like Tomorrow Night, that grittiness, that harsh reality, that type of stuff. I had the exact opposite. I wanted a story, elaborate story, a lot of role playing, stuff like that. Emotion, you know, the death of a unicorn. You know, you snap the unicorn's horn, you know, stuff like that. I really wanted a path for emotion. That was my main thing. I wanted emotion. I wanted tears. I wanted connection. I wanted the players to really do things. And for your first game, hell no. I mean, it was one of those, it's bad enough. It was in 5e. You got to remember, back then it was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It was, no, I'm sorry, it was a white box. And back then, you could try to do that, but players wanted a dungeon crawl. They wanted something different. They wanted to fight orcs and goblins and, a volley of arrows coming at them, a big war or something like that. They didn't want emotion. They didn't want any of that. And I didn't read them well. I thought that, hey, a group of people are a group of people. But let me tell you, this topic is going to be intertwined with other things. So bear with me. The problem is when you have an idea, and it's not really a problem, but it's one of those things that you have to look at. What do I mean by that? Is you have an idea, emotion. Let's do a bubble. You have emotion, you have your connection. Whatever classes they are, whatever races they are, where the setting is in the game. Is it a side story? Is it a campaign? Is it a couple? Whatever it is you have set, make sure that you read your players. That's important. I didn't read it. My first game sucked, and I learned a lot by it. Was I hurt? Oh yes, it was like somebody just stabbing you in the heart, just like that. And I really was hurt by it. I really was disappointed not in them, disappointed in me, because I knew I could have done better. And the hurt part was, well, I didn't know that my friends would do that. But you know what? That's the thing, though. You have to have a level of, can I take criticism? That's, as you grow as an individual, those are the things you have to really look at is hey, in order for me to grow as DM, I need to accept criticism. I need to learn those things, and I did. But in the beginning, it was rough, and that wasn't the first bad game. I've had a game where, but let me continue about the unicorn. I only ran the game for an hour, tops. I don't think it was even an hour. They were so pissed that they were pretty harsh. But after, the criticism I got was harsh. And I can tell you, like it was yesterday, Henry, your story sucked. A unicorn? Why? We're not playing Smurfs. We're not, in a video game. Fancy that, right? We're not. I mean, what the hell? That was just some of it. I think the worst criticism I got for that game was, Henry, you should just stop right here. Play. You shouldn't be a DM. You have no descriptions. You have no way of describing things. You don't know how to tell a story. Oh yeah, they were pretty harsh. Those are the things that I was really amazed. I was like, no, this can't happen to me. But let me tell you, it does happen. And people can be mean. But my friends, I learned from that experience, because all the mix of bad criticism, afterwards, we talked about it. They sat around and after they were being mean, They said, look, in a campaign, in a story, you got to read your players. You got to ask your players what you want. And I wasn't ready. I just kind of like threw it in there. I didn't ask what they wanted. That's where you get all these source books that says, hey, do a session 0. It doesn't have to be a separate session from the session. It can be a quick talk with your players. What do you want? Boom, 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 boom. Okay, good. Boom. Write it down in your notes. Start. If I would have done that, at least something, it would have been a better game. It would have been something better. I still would have had the unicorn. My heart was set in the unicorn, but it would have been a lot different. It would have been like a warrior on a unicorn with a sword at her side, something like that, with like a dozen or more forces behind her, asking for help in the war that she's in to fight. Something like that was far better than what the hell I had. But it was just one of those things, you fail. And failure is good because every time you fail, you have a just stepping stone to make things better. All the mistakes you make as a DM, as a player, whatever, any mistakes you make, if you fail, it's a stepping stone for something better. You'll learn from all those things. And what I learned was, A, always communicate with the party. Have a session 0. B, always write your story, but have things that are open for the players to communicate, to role play, to do whatever. Sort of like an open world. That's why sandboxing is so important. Because sandboxing, yeah, there might be a little bit of ho-hums or a little downtime or thinking about what to do. That's important because you have to have a level of freedom. And I didn't do that in my first campaign, in my first story. I didn't do that. They had no freedom. I railroaded the hell out of it. They followed a trail, literally, and they didn't have freedom. They probably were frustrated. C, probably the most important. If you're going to have emotion, some form of emotion in your story, start little by little. Sprinkle it. Let it build. I didn't do that. I wanted it first off. The unicorn died in the beginning. Hey, don't attack. I understand. It was my fault. But it was one of those things that I just thought was cool, but they did it. And last but not least, I know I said the other one was, but the last but not least, and this is just as important as the others, please, the players, their feedback is important. Feedback not in a session 0, in the game. That's why I learned to be, as a DM, to feed off my players. If I know one of my players is bored, I'll pick up on that. Learn to read, to feed, read and feed your players. Learn to see what's happening. Oh, your players are getting bored. Learn time management. Time management is good, because if you're spending 20, 30 minutes on one player, the others are going to be doing this. You don't want to do that. But sometimes it's out of your control. So you go to the next one and go from there. That's why splitting the party up Ideally, it's cool because it's great in the story, but sometimes it's unavoidable. The party splits up, but you try to keep them together because that way they can interact as a group. Not saying that interacting in separate locations is bad, but it can be boring for other players that are not there. I didn't do that at all. I messed everything up in my first session. So for all you new DMs, game masters, referees, storytellers, whatever you have in your story, make sure that you have those things I talked about, because reading your players, knowing what's going on in your story, and understanding their emotions and what they want is just as important as your story. I'm not saying your story is bad or anything like that. I'm just saying, my water is all the way over there, excuse me. I'm just saying that sometimes having a story and not knowing what your players are doing is a bad thing. Your story can be awesome, but if you don't know what your players are doing and what they want in the game, it's going to be bad. I want to put my water over here this time. So anyways, that's important. Now, in my first session, I also had a scene. Now, it wasn't very long, so I don't have a lot to say about it, but I wrote it to where, okay, they found the unicorn, it was dead, that was the emotional part, and they had to find out. It was kind of like a murder mystery, almost a mystery of who done it. And for your first time session, you cannot do something that elaborate. You can't. I mean, maybe you can, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to connect the dots or anything like that. That's another thing I want to mention is connect the dots. Here's where railroading comes in. You could do that every now and then, but with a little bit of railroading, don't control the whole thing, the game, but there's nothing wrong with sprinkle clues here and there. And if you have a murder mystery like I wanted, I didn't read my players, make sure that you do sprinkle clues, enough for them to go their own way. Again, you want an open world, you want them to think. I love open worlds. One of the biggest things that I love about video games is they have an open world. Video games are open world. Granted, there's a story, but you could go, the ones that you can go invest your time doing whatever. That's great. That's something that is something that is good for you as a player and a DM. You have fun as a DM, and the players have fun as well. That's what you want. You want to invest your time in having fun. And the same thing goes with the players. And how do you do that? Like I mentioned before, you have all these aspects, all these things that make up a good game. And in my first session, I didn't do that. I just thought, hey, have an emotional story, have a mystery, and they'll love it. But I didn't read my players. You have to read your players. You have to know what they want. Some players don't like mysteries. These guys wanted blood and murder. They wanted to go out and kill things. They wanted to dungeon crawl. I didn't know that. So I just said, okay, well, let's do this mystery. They didn't want a mystery. They didn't even want role playing. They just wanted the dungeon crawl. Nothing wrong with dungeon crawl. It is called Dungeons and Dragons. So what do you do when you have, a party that wants dungeon crawl and a party that wants role playing? You can mix it up. As a DM, you can do it. You can have them in a dungeon and have role-playing scenes in a dungeon. Maybe they found a dead party, another party that was, looking for this golden box or this golden hand, something like that. It's that simple. Maybe they have another party that went down there, adventuring too, that want to find the gold before you do. So both parties of adventurers are kind of like against each other. So there's your role-playing moment, and you have your dungeon crawl. So you have both players are happy. It's hard to really balance sometimes because that's where your session 0 comes in. Like I mentioned before, you really want to know what the players want, because then whatever you have written, you might as well throw it in the garbage. I've made mistakes, and mistakes, like I said before, failure mistakes are great because you learn from that, and there's another step you take, and that step is just as important as before, because if you didn't learn from your mistakes, then how do you get better? So when I first started, I didn't know what to do any of that. I just do it out. Oh, I'm just a guy telling a story. No, it's different. Everybody's different in a game. Whether you play Vampire the Masquerade, Robotech, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Dungeons and Dragons, players will always do different things. And when you have people that do different things at an accelerated rate, and trust me, players do just the weirdest thing, and you have to be ready for that. You could have everything written from A to Z, and they're gonna jump out of that. They do. So when you write something, you write initially what you want, sprinkle a little bit of railroading here and there, just sprinkle a little bit, and sandbox. Get their emotion. You gotta remember, not everybody's good at sandboxing. I believe that I'm good at sandboxing because I get the energy from my players. If you're in a role-playing moment with me, I'm gonna go ahead and improv. I'm gonna improvise. I can write whatever, I can write A to Z. And if you are in a moment with me, role-playing, that to me is amazing. And I'm just gonna go ahead and throw things out there and go here and there, boom, boom, boom. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. That's what it's about. It's not about the elaborate story. It's about how you deal with situations in that story. Because if you can't come out of a situation that they put you in, that's out of your story, you are in deep trouble. And I really mean that, because players can really do, and they may just say, oh, I want to go to this shop, or I don't want to go out, but the world is ending, a cataclysm. So I'm having ale. I'm having a good time in a tavern. There's nothing wrong with that. It's their story, not yours. You can write a great story, and you know what? That's awesome. I love writing. But they are the key actors and actresses in your story. They make your story. Without them, you might as well just write a book, because that's what it's about. Role-playing is about them. You can have an elaborate, awesome story, and the players will always work around your story. Always. I love it when you sit back and watch them role-play. You don't say a word, and you watch them. So those are the things that you can do, and hopefully you can take my advice, you can do to make your games great. Because in a game, in a role-playing game, when your players drive your story out of its network, then you're in for a haul. because now it's all improvising. Oh, wait, what do I do? You could write. Oh, what if they did this? What if they did that? And they will always do something different. You could have a little note, sticky note on there. Well, they went into the cave. They're not supposed to go there. Why not? Why can't they go in the cave? Why can't they jump in that, check out the railroad? Why can't they talk to that old woman in the corner? You described it. Oh, damn. Did I? You describe a group of people walking in a town together. The heroes are going from point A to point B into a tavern, but they see that group of people. The rogue says, I want to go do my thing to those people. Well, you want them to go to the tavern because you got to meet the perp, right? You got to meet the person in the adventure. You got to meet the guild master. Whatever. The rogue says, nope. Boop, 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 boop. You want the party to stay together, and this guy goes out. So now you got to improvise. Now your story is this here, but one player is going here. So now I describe two people, a man and a woman. They're holding hands. You see an elderly individual, a dwarf, walking about. It's daytime, for example. It's not night. And they're going in one of the tents. They're going to a shop. What are you doing? So the rogue says, I'm going to go try to steal. All right. Who? The couple. He does that. Make a stealth roll or sleight of hand. Roll. He makes it. He steals their pouch. Make a perception roll. You can feel something. Someone's looking at you. You could have that feeling. He didn't make a good roll. He looks around. He sees in the corner. The individual saw him stealing. He pulls out a sword. Shit. That's what I mean about improvising. When people do that, it just gets my gears going. I love that. What I learned from my first story about the derpy unicorn was that I had to improvise. I had to reach out to my players and find out what they liked. I didn't do that, but now I can do that. I can see what my players like. I can see that improvising is just as important as the main story in my game. So now, let's go back to the rogue example. The rogue is in a situation with a fighter or a mysterious man who saw him steal. Happened to be one of the town guards. Wow, that easy, town guards. They get into a big scuffle. The rogue loses. He's taken to a cell. The heroes hear that. They're at the tavern. They have to break him up. That is a little story within the story that you didn't really have. You just kind of winged it. So that's great, isn't it? That's what it's about. That is exhausting for a DM. It is. It's exhausting because you do all these things and you do all these things, and the main thing, I keep saying thing, I'm sorry. You do these little things, and the players think it's funny. But when they do this stuff like this, they're only role playing. They only want to have a good time. Remember that. Role playing is about having fun. And once you have fun, you have that time for yourself, things are great. But let's get into what happens when your game is falling apart. There are things that you can do that you can recover a game. If your story is about saving a damsel in distress away from the city limits, they have to go in a cave. There's your dungeon crawl setting, but your players are not having it, not going anywhere. They're going all over the place. So what do? This is what you do. First of all, get yourself some water or something to drink and focus. Take a deep breath because you're going to dive in hard. You're going to improvise now. Whatever notes you have, set them aside. Get into the characters. Player one, what are you doing? The group inside the tavern let's go back to the rogue situation. Yeah, we're going to get the guys together and we're going to save the rogue. Okay. As you do that, you start to leave the tavern. You hear clanging of armor, horses outside. What are you doing? Oh, before we go out, we peek through the door. They peek through the door and they see, 5 armored guards. What are you doing? They're the city guards. Go from there. Recover your story by subplots, mini subplots, and they have to be strong. And all these subplots have to be improvised, no matter what. This is going to be difficult. Do it by extensive role-playing, description. Use your senses, sight, smell, hear, touch, taste. Describe things as much as possible. Describe the room, describe the guards. Get into the game. That's how you recover your story. By extensive subplots, describing the scene, the best to your ability, using the senses that you have. What do you see? What are they doing? What are they feeling? Stuff like that. That will recover your story. Because now the players are getting mad. They're saying, oh, this game sucks. And then something shifted. That shift is done by you. And only you. One of the main golden keys and a DM has, and I call them the golden keys. There are many, are all improvising, no matter what. And you can say, oh yeah, you can sandbox, improvise, 100%. Get into your story, get into character. If your story takes a dive, improvise. Connection, your sight, the sound, the feel. Remember what I said? All those things, describe as much as possible. Get your players out of that mode. Get your players out of that, oh man, the game sucks. The game is not going well. And make it good. Do your best to move forward from whatever happened in your opening act. It happens to everyone. And it can happen now. It's happened to me before. Now, it's happened. We're all human. We make mistakes. And not even a mistake. It's more or less that you drive things and you think in your mind, you think that the story is going to be this montage of different scenarios of emotion, role-playing, and action. And sometimes the players are not going to have it. You need to bring them in that story. That is your job as a DM. Bring them in the story. Give them a reason to role-play. Give them a reason to immerse yourself in a fictitious world, your world. It doesn't have to be my world, Dominulus. It can be Greyhawk. It can be Forgotten Realms. It can be whatever. Bring them in that world and know that whatever you do, have fun doing it. To me, I love role-playing so much that improvising and stuff like that, I don't have a problem with. I have fun doing it. I have fun having fun. When the players are having fun, rolling dice and role-playing, I'm having fun doing NPCs, world building, doing different things. Am I brain dead after? Yes. But it's fun. And you can't take that away from me. You can't take that away from DMs. When you are running a game, and this is just as important as anything I talked about, if you are not having fun, then it's over. Then whatever I've said for advice, whatever I said is out the door. Because you're not having fun. To recover a story in a bad situation, try it out. Try out mass descriptions. Try out, use your senses. Describe a sense, the touch, the feel, the sight. The individual with the sword, you could hear the shoot. He drew his sword. You could see his cloak fluttering. You could hear the stuff like that. Bring them in your story. Bring them back to the story. That's the only way. But you have to have fun doing it. It's not frustrating. When you get mad and frustrated, step back, you're done. It's not what role-playing is about. When you get mad at your players, when you get mad at yourself, you're not having fun, then it's over. Might as well rip your story up, throw it in the garbage for another day. See, the misconception here is role-playing is this, there's a set of rules, you gotta follow this and that. Yeah, I know all that. But you have to give yourself credit where credit is due. Have fun. Understand things the way they are. Understand the situation. Understand your players. If your story in the middle, if it started weak, then take it up a notch. It's your job to do that. But if you get frustrated doing it, no. I've made mistakes before, and I've learned from them. And that's the only way you grow as a DM. Going back to my very first story, my first game was horrible, but I'm not going to kill myself over it. I can laugh about it because it was funny. It was my first game, but I learned from it. I already said what I did wrong. It's one of those things that you just have to look at yourself and say, look, move on. After that, I never played D&D for a long time because I was almost intimidated by that. It was so bad. Before I moved on, my fuel was to other games. I played a game called Earthdawn, and I kind of like separated myself from Dungeons and Dragons. So I ran Earthdawn. I became really good storyteller on Earthdawn, and it was great. Or a GM, game master, and it was very cool. I love Earthdawn. To this day, I still love Earthdawn. It was a game that saved me because I knew how to change things, how to make it my own, and how to see the players, how to understand things. I had to change things. And by learning through these little things here and there, I really understood how to make a campaign, a session zero, a one shot, and it was different games. Storytelling, role playing in general, is not for everyone because not everybody can role play. Everybody thinks they can role play, but that's not the case. Role playing is a different type of level. And think about in a video game sense where you go up from one level to another, just like role playing. Dungeons and Dragons, you go from one level to another, you advance, you know what you get. From one level to another, you get stronger. Same thing as a DM, you learn, you get better as you go. The more you do it, the better you are. And the same thing goes with role playing. In general, when you role play, the more you role play, the better you're at it. You understand what to do or not to do. You go into that realm. And the way to role play the best is for you to get inside the story. Is for you to understand the way the story is, get into character, and go from there. It's like you're an actor or an actress of a movie. Same difference. That's the way I see it. Because you're playing another part. You're not yourself. You're playing a hero or a villain. You're playing a dragonborn. You're playing a tiefling. You're playing a human bard, a human fighter, an elf fighter. You're playing a halfling. You're playing an orc. You're playing whatever. Those are the things that make up a role playing. And not everybody can do it. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're having fun. If you're a new player and you're having fun role playing, and you're an advanced player, new player, advanced player, the advanced player is not having fun because of what's happening in the game, he's pissed off about the rules, or blah, blah, blah. The advanced player is wrong. Want to know why? Because he's not having fun. That's not why you role play. I love the stream. That is my endeavor, my love. The guys that I play with have fun, but we're recording, we're streaming. That is my endeavor. They love doing it. So do I. Now, if you have someone in that party that doesn't like it, it's not going to work out, because we all have to have fun. We all have to have a level of understanding, a good time. And that's it, isn't it? That's it. That's the key. That is the key. Have fun. You can make an elaborate, long campaign. And if everyone's having fun, they're going to talk about it. I ran a Vampire the Masquerade game. I think it was 2 years, 3 years, somewhere around there. Yeah. And let me tell you, that was emotional roller coaster. It was fun. It was great. Not everybody loves the system. Not everybody loves that type of system. But back then I did. It was something, again, not D&D. I wanted something different. And I really made myself as a storyteller. I never called myself a DM. Never, because of what happened in that one first game session, that first game of Dungeons and Dragons. It's almost scarred me that I had to change and figure things out through other games. And I did. I kind of made my own thing. Earth Dawn, Vampire the Masquerade, which again, 3 years, somewhere around there. A great game. I made myself. I love it. It just, I had the opportunities to do my thing, to open up as a player, open up as a storyteller. At least for Vampire it was. I've played Shadowrun. I've played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Heroes Unlimited, and I love Heroes Unlimited. It takes an hour to make your character, but it's great. All pen and paper, no digital. And those are great times, but it changed me. I learned from my mistakes. Thanks for the information, Forgotten Basin. Thank you very much. That's something that, here we go with that. I have that in my lingo today. Excuse me. I was saying that, here we go. I was saying back then I learned from my mistakes and I changed from one game to another. And let me tell you, I really learned a lot. And through those experiences with other games, I developed a love for fantasy. But I played Earthdawn. Earthdawn was my realm, my world. And I created my own world in Earthdawn. So when I finally went to Dungeons and Dragons, back here, I created my own homebrew realm, and it's my safe place, as I call it. I love it. I use a lot of lore, and I love using gods. I love using, just the orcs the way they're really supposed to be. But I just love that stuff, and you learn a lot from your mistakes. You move on, but it took me a long time to get here, to get back home, to get back to Dungeons and Dragons. It just took me a long time. But when I did, I said, you know what? It's a game, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. And I did. And I have a wonderful, wonderful group of players. Two new players will be joining us. I did not introduce them accurately, but I will. I wanted to introduce both Joe and Benjamin. Benjamin did not show up until, he will show up in tomorrow's game, but in the first game of Harsh Reality, he couldn't make it. But we talked about it, so he's going to join us in the next game, which is tomorrow. And Joe's a great, D&D guy. He has a lot of lore in his background. He's an old school gamer. So I wanted something like that. So it's great. Old school gamers are cool. But that's something that, here we go with that. When you have players that join the game, they love things. They love the way things go. They have fun playing. Really, those are the main points of DMing, refereeing, storytelling, game mastering. Whatever it is, role you take in whatever game you play, whether it's an OSR, Dungeons and Dragons, understand that in a game, you are the DM. Whether you have the rules, you are the final call. You say what goes in your table. Period. There's nothing wrong with that. But understand there are certain things that you can do to make your game better. And your players, making them happy by knowing what they like is part of that. And as a player, as a DM and as a player, when you are not connected like that, then there's a big problem, because the DM is not reading the players and the players are not reading the DM. So you don't want no animosity, you don't want no hate, nothing like that. You just want to have a good time. You want things to go well. The main aspect of this game. I don't care how many people hate the company of Dungeons and Dragons right now. It is still my favorite fantasy. Like I said, it took me a while to learn and then jump right back into D&D. I played other games. I love the other games. I love role-playing. But to come back here, and when I did, I just fell in love with it even more. Now, it's gotten a lot of hate of the way things are with, new books and so forth. I don't care anything about that. I just want to play. I want to DM. I want to have a good time. And my players are having a good time. At least I think so. They've said they had a good time. But I can see it in their eyes. And when you look at what they do and how they role play and how they interact with each other, and you sit back and you are watching them role play for 5 minutes or longer, you've done your job as a DM. Take that and enjoy it, because that is the greatest compliment you could ever have. Watching your players, watching your guys role play, have a great time, judging, talking, whatever they do in that scene, and you just sit back and watch. That is the greatest compliment to me, without even saying it, with actions. That is important. I've had that many times in my games. You're not going to get them all the time, but when you do, sit back and enjoy it. Man, it's the best feeling. It really is. So know that your players at your table are the most important thing in your story. You can write an elaborate story, but if your players are not having it at your table, there's going to be problems. Having fun is the number one thing. If you don't have that connection, there's nothing that you can do. It'll just drop. But I did say you can recover easily by enjoying yourself, by describing different scenes, different situations, using the senses, by role-playing heavily, by bringing back your players into the game. Bring them back into your story. Bring them back into your improvisation. Bring them back, and you can do it. Anyone can do it. There is a way that you can do it. Describe a random person anywhere. Describe the bartender passing out, clutching his chest. They go to find out what's going on. Or maybe you have a party who don't care about stuff like that. They want to do dungeon crawling. Person bursts into the tavern. He says, "I got a letter from so and so. He's in the dungeon east of here. Who wants to go? I have a pouch of gold." Bring them in your story. No matter what you do. 1, 2, let it click. Let it go. Get your reactions. Look at the players. What are they doing? Are they interacting? Are they role-playing? Are they taking notes? Read them. It's a tactic that DMs have. You can see, read the room. Just like a comedian. When they're up on stage, they can read the room. They can read the room, understand the situation, and tell their story and making people laugh. You don't think they do that? Next time you go to a comedy special, or Zanies or wherever you want to go, watch the comedian. And he looks at the crowd. And then he'll say, in whatever snippet he has, he'll say, hey, oh, I got a bad crowd tonight. Gotta watch that joke. That's a hint. Telling himself what to do or what not to do. He reads the room. And the same thing for a DM. Read the room. Read your players. Understand what they want. I love theater of the mind, but if my players are half and half, and they are, gotta have miniatures out there. Gotta have a little bit of. There's some players who cannot visualize no matter what you do. Bring them back in the story. Guys, that's all I have for you tonight. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow, our new time, 7 p.m. Central. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central, we'll have a big game called Harsh Reality. The game's about 6 individuals. They had a coup. They're nasty. They're bad. They went to town to take out the leader of the Order of the Light. Something happened. Well, they had this scuffle. They kind of killed their own leader, the Crimson Rider leader, the Orc. So now, what are they going to do? They killed their leader. We'll find out tomorrow. Join us. All right. Love you guys. See you tomorrow.